With Lord Monkton, what's going on with Greece? Do you have any thoughts on Greece?
Well, it's very difficult to say exactly when the other states who are bankrolling this, chiefly Germany, which has 30% of Greece's debt, um, when they're finally going to snap and realize that if they allow Greece to go on kicking the can down the road, then other countries are going to start doing the same. Greece is by no means the only country that's gone bankrupt by the stupidity of adopting the euro. Portugal, Spain, Ireland, Belgium, Italy, even France, all of those are in dire economic trouble, as are Slovakia, Slovenia, Croatia, Poland. I mean, it is a terrifying thing what the euro has done to these countries. And the point is that if Greece gets away with the formal default, which has now happened, and the far bigger default, which is going to come in July, where they owe money to the European so-called central bank, which of course is basically a joke, then this is going to cause the most appalling dislocation. So I think that what is going to happen is they may let Greece away with it just this one more time, on the understanding that by the July payment, which is due to the central bank, Greece will honour its commitment or be told that that is the date on which they leave the euro and they'd better have the drachma in place and ready by that time. And I suspect that's what's going to happen.
Oh.
I think what is now quietly going on is that all the necessary arrangements to reintroduce the drachma are being made, and that come the July default, the plug will be pulled, the drachma will come into use, and Greece will be out of the euro.
Wow.
If they did anything else, sorry?
Yeah. One thing that you told me that I remembered just flashed in my mind. The first thing Margaret Thatcher did when she got into office was to pay off all the debt. And I'm just saying,
she paid off all the foreign debt. You see, if you owe money to your own people, it's all in-house and you can deal with it. But if you owe money to foreigners, then you're under their control. And she said a sovereign nation doesn't owe money to other countries, and she paid it all back within weeks of taking office.
What I'm trying to say is if Margaret Thatcher had not done that, and they were beholden, and they were basically forced by joining and getting the euro, I mean, the single best thing I think England ever did is to not fall for getting the euro, and I'm just saying they probably would have gotten the euro had Margaret Thatcher not insisted on paying off all the debt.
I think that all of those things are right. She was certainly right about paying off the foreign debt. It was Enoch Powell who told us to do that, and she did that. Then she got Alan Walters over from the United States, who was a very good free market economist, and who the Economist magazine, in one of the most eloquent but misplaced insults he'd ever perpetrated, said that he was one of the world's top 260 transport economists. In fact, he was a very, very good all-round free market economist. And it was rather interesting because just when I got to number 10, Nigel Lawson, who was then the finance minister, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, he wanted to go into the euro. So Margaret Thatcher had said to us in the policy unit, and to Alan, who was in the policy unit too, though he had a special status as her advisor on economic matters, can we please go into the euro? This was Margaret. She said, we want to go into the euro if we can, because I'd like to please Nigel. He's one of my closest supporters, etc., etc., and I'd like to do him a favour by getting us into the euro. And said, but please would you look at it and tell me what the pros and cons are. So we looked at it from the point of view of, gosh, can we make this work? And we didn't start with the prejudice that we didn't want to make it work. We just said, well, right, let's really buckle to and let's see whether we can make it work. And we came to the unhesitating and unanimous conclusion that there was no way that you could make it work without destroying either the British economy or the European economy, or both. And of course it turned out to be both, because John Major then did try to get us into the euro. And he went into the first stage of it, which was the European exchange rate mechanism, and it was a complete disaster. But and now, of course, the euro itself is buggering up the economies of the whole of Europe as well, just as we foresaw that it would, and for the reasons we foresaw that it would. And I gave a lecture, in fact, in 1996 at St Andrews University, which was the year before the euro came in. But by then we knew that they were not going to adhere to the Maastricht economic convergence criteria, which were the minimum necessary to establish what's known as an optimum currency area, so that you've got all the countries joining the currency have broadly the same economic strength, so that they're not going to pull themselves apart with trying to apply the same interest rate and the same monetary and fiscal policies to the whole enterprise when the countries are too different to allow it. But all of this, the theory of optimum currency areas, was well understood. I knew all about it. Of course, Alan Walton knew all about it. It was one of the main reasons why we said we couldn't go into the euro. But they went ahead with the euro, having abandoned the monetary convergence criteria, which were laid down in the Maastricht Treaty. This was the supreme law of Europe, which instead of honouring it, the European commissars simply said, well, we're going to let everybody join the euro whether they comply with the supreme law of Europe or not. Now, they had no power to do that, but they did it because they were the dictators. Nobody could tell them they couldn't. That's the way the treaties are structured. And so the euro is a disaster. So that's why I think that they cannot afford to let Greece default and stay in the system. Because otherwise, everybody will default.
So you say they're giving them a year. You say July they will be returning to the drachma. Is that that's a year from this month?
I think that's how it's going to work. I mean, obviously, it takes a certain amount of time physically to print the notes and mint the coins and arrange for the procedures that the banks get notified that all euros are to be called in and the drachmas to be issued instead. I mean, it's physically a large and, alas, cripplingly expensive operation. So you can't do it overnight. They're actually stuck with the euro for a bit anyway now that they've defaulted. So I guess that what will emerge from their default is that the European Central Bank, which was always a ludicrous organization, I wrote when they were first setting it up and applied to be the chief executive of it. I said, look, I'm the only person that studied this. I know what's going to happen. This is going to fail. I know how to stop it failing. And if you don't choose me, this will end in tears. Of course, I didn't get any reply. So I had the satisfaction of giving them quite a detailed briefing on exactly why and when it was going to fail, and it's all come exactly to pass.
Wow.
But they can't afford to let Portugal and Spain and all the other countries default as well, because the European Central Bank would cease to be a bank in any useful sense at all if that happened. So they are now at the point where they can't allow a defaulting Greece to remain within the euro. It is as simple as that.